Okay, this is our second video in our series of instructional videos about our budgeting project. At this point, you should be all done balancing the bank account for Jim or Pam, and we're moving on to the next step, which is expense tracking. If you remember from class, expense tracking is basically categorizing all of your expenses. Okay, so we're just going to go through these lists and start putting some of these withdrawals into different categories. One of the important things to remember is we're not actually going to do anything with any of the deposits at this time. Okay, so if you see any of these deposits that we have, you can go ahead and ignore those for now. We're only dealing with the withdrawals. Alright, so we can go ahead and pull up, this is our expense tracking sheet. Okay, now as you see, we have the January expense tracking sheet. All January expenses would go on this sheet. Alright, and if you look down here, you can click on sheet 2. There's your February expense tracking, so all February expenses go on there. And then we get down here, we have the March expense tracking, all March expenses go there. Alright, let's go back to January real quick. We've divided this into two categories. We have our fixed expenses, which we explained the other day. Fixed expenses stay the same. And the thing about fixed expenses is there's only one of them per month. Alright, no matter what, there's only going to be one per month. If you have more than one fixed payment per month, you've done something wrong. Okay, and down here we have the flexible expenses. If you just look at some of these categories, you can probably tell that there's going to be multiple entries in each category for gasoline, groceries, dining out, some of the entertainment things. You typically use that more than once a month. Okay, so what we have to do now, and what I like to do is kind of not minimize, but get these side by side, which will help me easily transition between the two. Okay, and the best way to do this is to go in order. Alright, you might be tempted to try some other format, try to do all the food first, or try to do them all by categories, but honestly, just go in order. Okay, and the same trick I told you the other day, as you do a transaction, go ahead and highlight it so that you know that you did it. Okay, so we'll start with this first one, rent, $765. Okay, with expense tracking, you're going to find the category that fits the most. Alright, I'll explain this in class, but there's no definite category that you have to put things in, but just use common sense. Alright, so rent would go into rent. Alright, easy enough. Okay, so we just go ahead and list how much our rent was in that category. Rent was $765. We fill in $765 and we're done with rent for January. Okay, next one, got Starbucks. Okay, one of the trends that you'll quickly pick up on is Jim and Pam's love for coffee. Maybe they have a job where they have to get up early in the morning, get a little caffeine going, but they drink a lot of it. So we actually have a whole category just for coffee right here. Alright, 3.77. Okay, BP gasoline. Don't let that confuse you. When I say BP, I simply mean the BP gas stations. Okay, I try to assign some names and stuff to help you categorize these, but BP gasoline is just your car fuel. Alright, that would go under the subcategory transportation right here. Notice there's also, let me expand this a little bit. I'm sorry, under housing there's also natural gas right there. Okay, natural gas is what you use to heat your home or to heat your hot water heater. It's not what you would put in your car. So when I say natural gas, there's usually right there, that's NIPSCO gas, that's natural gas. Okay, something like BP or Marathon, that's your gas station, so keep that in mind. So we can go ahead and put BP gasoline, highlight it so we know we did it, and then enter it in there. Okay, let's go ahead and skip a little bit ahead and do another gas station if we can find it. There's one right down there. Okay, I want to show you what happens when you get multiple entries. Alright, so a couple of weeks later, he goes to the BP gas station, or I'm sorry, she goes to the BP gas station again, spends another $45. Instead of adding that in there automatically, we're just going to go one cell down and enter that. Okay, that. Let's assume we already did all those. So you work your way down, okay, going down vertically. Alright, you don't have to add it up as you go, because as I'll show you in our next video, Excel was actually going to do all this math for us, so we don't have to worry about messing up any calculations. If we put in the right numbers, it'll do the math for us eventually. Okay, so as you go through here, if you get multiple entries, just continue to work your way down the columns. Alright, you don't need to do any addition. Okay, as we do this part of the project, one of the most common problems that come up is that students are unsure what category a particular item goes into. And like I said, what I want you to do is just use common sense as much as possible. Alright? You don't need to ask me about every single entry. If you look through every option and use common sense, you'll probably figure it out. Okay, it's not too difficult. Alright, you know, we look at cost as Italian restaurant. Restaurant goes in dining out. Okay, Kroger's goes under groceries. Alright, I'll try to find a tough one. Dr. Green's office, okay, would probably go under medical. Alright, same with after that, CVS pharmacy. Pharmacy is where you get medicine, so that would probably go under medical as well. Alright, so if you look at all the options and use common sense, you ought to be able to figure it out. Okay, and like I said, there's no right or wrong answer. There's no one place where you have to put stuff. If it all ends up in there, the math will work out in the end. Alright, so there's no set place where things have to go. If you use common sense, you'll be fine. Now, don't get silly with it, alright? Don't put, you know, Starbucks under car insurance, or don't put Penn Station subs under hair and grooming, okay? Let's be logical, and if you can do that, you should be in good shape. One thing that could help you out in this process is something I set up for you, and it is the fourth document, which is tips for tracking expenses, okay? And this is just a guide of some of the categories you can put stuff into. So if you're really stuck, you have no idea where to put a particular item, and you're worried you're going to get marked off or something, just check this out, read through it, and see where you're at. See if you can figure it out. And if all else fails, go ahead and raise your hand and I'll come over and help you out. Let's take a look at one last thing before we go. Make sure that after each month, you switch over to another sheet. So when you get down here and you do your last transaction here, okay, you do your Starbucks right there on the 31st. I'm sorry, you do your credit card payment right here on the 31st, your last transaction. So you're done with that. Okay, you move on to February. Make sure that you switch to sheet 2. Okay, sheet 2 is February. So start with that first expense right there, the rent. Okay, putting that in February, and then when you get down to March down here, switch over to the third sheet, which is March. Okay, so many times I come around about on the third day and I see a kid who put all 3 months onto one sheet. Well, they got to go through and change all that. That's a lot of work that was done but not done properly. Okay, so the key to this whole part of this project is that there's a lot of entries. You're going to put in probably 147 different entries into these 3 sheets. Okay, it's a little tedious, a little time consuming. There's no way around it. It's important though. It's important to put everything into categories. Once you do that, you'll be able to start to see some of the patterns and some of the problems with how they spend their money. Okay, but there's no easy way to get it done. There's no fast way. Don't try to find any shortcuts. Take it slow and steady. Be very accurate so you don't make mistakes and have to go back and fix them. And like I say, the thing that really helps kids out is to highlight as they go, so that they don't mess up and skip one or do one twice. Those are 2 things that usually happen. Hope this is helpful. If you have any questions, make sure to let me know. There will be a second video that will be posted up on Wednesday, and it will explain what to do once you're done through March. But most of you probably won't get done with this in just one day. So that video will be up on Wednesday.